I was looking into graduate school for quite some time, and I had considered going into an art history master's program or something like that, but that didn't really feel like quite the right fit for me. I'd always been a writing heavy person, and when I found this program, I felt like it was melded my interests in a very specific way. And so that's why I applied. It was the only graduate school program that I applied to. By far, the most important thing I learned was how to be a better writer. I thought that the art criticism and writing program at SVA really trained me to be a good writer. I think that I was not a bad writer before, but the program had a special way of breaking down sort of the bad habits that I had developed in my writing and then rebuilding a stronger personality that came through not only in my writing but also in my life. Before I came to the graduate school program, I worked for the Calder Foundation for many years, and I continued to work there through my time at graduate school, and I still work there now. I only work there part-time, but because of graduate school, my role there has sort of shifted, and now the things that I do are much more text and editing based than they were before I worked there. Besides that, I've been building up a freelance writing practice, and I've been writing as an art critic for the Brooklyn Rail and Art Critical. I also have several other freelance writing jobs and editing jobs for private clients and people. I get a lot of referrals. So I've kind of always got my hands in about 5 or 6 different projects at any given time. And I also think that the program at SVA has given me a lot more confidence for my own writing, the personal writing that I've done that I hope to publish, which is maybe even outside of the art world spectrum. Certainly working as a freelance writer is not impossible, and I was fortunate enough to make a couple of good contacts in graduate school, which have led me to a couple of steady freelance writing situations in my post-grad life. I think a lot of building up a freelance practice is just having tenacity and moxie. You have to be okay with people saying, yeah, sorry, not really interested in that. But that's okay, because I think that for every person that tells you they're not interested, there's another one out there that's going to tell you, yes, I'm very interested in your voice and what you're writing and what you have to say. I also, a lot of the freelance work I've done has been in editing, and I think that, again, before I came to graduate school, I wasn't a bad editor, but that was really a skill that I developed quite a bit here at the SVA writing program. And a lot of the freelance work I do now is in editing as well. I think the best way that I can describe this is that, when I was writing my thesis here at SVA, I became so involved with my subject that I felt that it was almost like something I felt in my body, and it's hard to kind of put this into words, but it's something that I learned about writing about art that is like almost more intuitive than it is intellectual. And I feel like when I can harness that feeling and put it into words, that's to me the perfect instance of art criticism for me. When I can feel something in my body about a work and then convey it on a piece of paper. And it's something that I think is really rare, and is something that, when you read a piece of writing that manages to do that, there's really not anything else like it, and that's what I strive for as an art critic. I had a wonderful thesis experience in the SVA art writing and criticism program. It was probably my favorite semester of the program, writing my thesis. I wrote my thesis about a Polish sculptor named Alina Szopecznikov. She's a mid-20th century Polish sculptor, pretty well known in Poland, not so much so here, though in 2012, MoMA had a fairly sizable retrospective of her work, which is where I first encountered it. And I felt like it was a topic that was ripe for exploration. She was, there were some things written about her, but not very much. And I was able to develop a thesis that really was, I think, an original piece of writing. It was an angle that nothing that I had read had really broached before. And I actually just reread it recently, about a week ago, and I still feel like, oh God, this is like the best thing that I've ever written, was my thesis. But I think it's like such a great thing to be able to have 3 or 4 solid months where the only thing you're responsible for is making this great piece of writing. A lot of people get stressed out about the thesis, but I thought it was a great experience. I've read so much, and I feel like at various times, depending on what I'm writing about, I'm pulling in different things, but I still refer back to my graduate school books and notes. I mean, what I do now at my job is I do 2 things. I work on long-term archival projects, things that have been sitting around for 20 years that nobody has gotten to. So one half of my job is, right now, I'm cataloging hundreds and hundreds of original drawings that have never been documented before. I'm dating them, I'm making records for them. I'm figuring out, a lot of them are drawings of actual sculptures, so I'm figuring out what they're drawings of. That's half my job. That's the archive part. The other half, and this is how my role has changed most significantly, is that now, every text that comes through the door, for every exhibition catalog, for every, newspaper article, for every magazine, comes to me, and I edit it, and I make sure it's not stupid. I've long had this idea of writing something fictional based on the incident of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, which was a huge workplace fire that took place in 1911 at a blouse factory in downtown New York, and it killed 146 people, mostly immigrant women, overwhelmingly. And it was the biggest workplace disaster in New York City up until 9/11. I mean, it was there was more loss of life in that factory fire than anything else that happened up until then. So I've kind of long had this idea of writing a story or something that relates to it. I was a history major in undergrad, so I have sort of an interest in history, and in the Industrial Revolution was my area of focus. So I just started reading this book randomly this spring called The Triangle, which is about the fire and about the social history surrounding it. And so I'm kind of, in my personal writing, maybe developing an idea for a story that's based in fact. Maybe a historical fiction. And I really don't know exactly how it's going to take shape or what it means, but it's something that I'm working on, and something that I'm finally working on after thinking about it for a long time. The writing that I did in the program has affected my personal writing completely and totally. I think that the program at SVA has taught me how to focus very specifically, and how to use my time in a smart way. And I think that a lot of, I still think back to the classes that I took here and my thesis experience. Nearly every time I sit down and write, I think that it really developed my philosophies as a feminist, and that plays into my writing often and frequently. The things that I write now, especially in my art criticism, I think it's things that I still think about and I'm still learning from even 2 years later. I do recommend this program to people who want to write about art. I recommend it to the person who is willing to commit to writing about art, because it's not the easiest thing to do. It's probably not going to make you a rock star, but I do think that you can find a lot of meaning and draw more meaning out of your own life if you're willing to commit to it. When I came to graduate school, I entered the program 12 weeks pregnant. It was not exactly the way I planned my life, but that's how things shook out. And it was tough. I was working, I was pregnant, I was in this program full time, and then in the middle of my second semester, I had a baby. And I was very fortunate to have a supportive husband and mom that helped me a lot, and without them, I probably would not have made it through. But they helped me at least give me enough time to work on my writing in between all of the other things that I was doing. So I would say that it's not an easy program. It's not an easy program if you don't have a kid. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of writing, and it's a lot of commitment. But, if you're willing to commit, you can do it. If I can do it with a kid, you can do it. I feel proud of myself for doing it, but in the moment, it's like you just do it. You don't ask how are you going to do it. You just do it, and you kind of figure it out as you go along. And I think that's sort of true with, even if you don't have a baby, living in New York, how do you do it? You just do it. You don't know how you do it, but you just do it. You figure it out somehow. And I think anybody with tenacity and anybody willing to put in a lot of effort can do it. There's sacrifices you have to make, but you can. You just have to commit to saying, hey, I'm a writer and this is how life is, I guess.